Hey guys, I'm here with Joey. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, how are you guys? Well, yeah, my name is Joey. I make YouTube videos. Perhaps you've seen my videos. I tend to talk about a lot of different things on my videos, but a lot of them do center around INFP oriented topics. So, typology, I'll talk about typology a lot, but kind of from my perspective, I haven't branched out, to be honest, and talked about much from other people's points of view in typology, but I like talking about personality theory in general. So not just the Jungian and like psychoanalytic stuff, but I like talking about the big five too. Um, Temperament generally is the word I would use. So I like to talk about temperament a lot and how there are biological predispositions that we have that we possess. You could call that temperament, and how we can actually engage ourselves in life using them in a more meaningful way. So I like to talk about that as an aspect of health more generally. So I think people who are healthier tend to be more psychologically engaged in their lives. So I like to talk about that.
Yeah, and something that probably besides maybe someone that like knows us in real life, I am friends with Joey in real life. Like we actually met before either of us did YouTube. We went to the same high school and we grew up in the same city. So
Yeah, it's legit.
um
Right
Yeah,
on.
and I think you might know this, Joey, but you actually were the one that got me into typology. Did you know that?
Wow, I'm honored. Wow,
You were the first one to
fantastic.
introduce me to. I don't know if you remember this. You probably told this to a
You're
lot of people.
probably not the first. Let's be honest. I've kind of been a bit of a typology nerd.
Well,
Glad to let everyone know.
even before your channel, I remember like I think I was like either a sophomore or junior in high school, and you messaged me. You're like, "Have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality test?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And you're like, "You need to take it." And so I took it, and I got ENFJ. And I
Right. Yes, you were an ENFJ for the longest time.
what?
You were. I had this period of sort of infatuation with everything that was extroverted feeling, and I wanted to know who had extroverted feeling. I wanted to like experience it.
Yeah.
Really
But
interesting.
obviously I'm not an ENFJ, but I still really like ENFJs.
But you've got the extroverted feeling function.
I do. And I can see why being in high school, not so much as you. I mean, we were in different grades. We're the same age, but I was held back in first grade. But anyways, I we were in different grades, so we didn't really like share the same classes and stuff. You probably didn't know this as much, but I was really quiet in high school. I think you knew that,
Yeah, yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah.
I don't really know what I was like. You know, it's hard to get a sense. You know, and when you reflect on it, it's probably hardly accurate, right? You know, you think you were one way, but maybe you were actually a different way. I don't know. Definitely, I think that was a phenomenon for me as well, where I became a bit more comfortable being extra, you know, asserting myself and talking and just throwing myself into experiences, generally speaking. As I got older, particularly in college, my first year of studying in college was probably when I got out of my shell.
Same for me, definitely. Um, Also, yeah, so we've been friends for it's been a while now. That's crazy. It's been like how many years? I don't even know, but we've talked a lot. Especially like years ago, we used to talk on Skype a lot and talk about different things. Would you like to kind of describe how you were even pre-high school, like how you were as a child? I know both of us were
Mm,
very sensitive children.
that's a cool topic. Yeah. I think that my life has been largely marked by a sensitivity. I think a lot of people use the word empath, on the internet, like as this highly sensitive person. I think that I've always been, I've always become very, I've always been drawn to people who have been socially ostracized or rejected, or at least have been sensitive to that. People who are different, you could say, or people who maybe are anxious or depressed. I've just always been very sensitive to, I don't want to say social rejects, but probably something like that, if you want to put it that way. Um, and there's always a lot of pain involved in, not fitting in or being rejected. And I think I've always been very empathic towards the underdog or the person who isn't necessarily popular or something like that. Um, I've always been generally more interested in those people than in like the cool kids or something like that, for whatever reason.
Yeah, we were both not cool.
I don't even know what cool is. That's the thing. I always joke about that. Perhaps that has something to do with being a nine. INFP, the nine variant. I generally, like genuinely speaking, I don't think I kind of grew into being more self-conscious. I don't think I was really well aware of the social dynamics, in any real sense. I don't think I kind of matured into that or whatever.
I've noticed that with a lot of young INFPs. Looking back at the time, I obviously didn't know that they were INFPs, but now looking back, some of the people that I expect to be INFP or I do know are INFP, they were definitely kind of in their own little world. I've always been very aware of social dynamics.
Which would probably resonate well with that auxiliary feeling function, which is actually taking in that feeling data. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
or at least I would hypothesize that. That makes sense. Makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I imagine, I mean, that INFJs, in my experience, they get pretty overwhelmed though by social situations. So it's like they're actually receiving a ton, so it's like they can't handle it.
Yeah. I mean, both of us used to cry as children,
Oh yeah.
and I cried even in high school, and because I had anxiety, like high anxiety, and it was just too much for me, kind of, and yeah, so,
Definitely marked with a sensitivity to suffering. My Big Five agreeableness score for compassion is in the 97th percentile. So, with that being said, I think as a child, I was probably a bit more vulnerable to the world. I think as you grow older, you kind of harden a little bit, not necessarily on purpose, but it's just what happens, I guess. So I think there was like this raw compassion when I was a kid. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
yeah, I could definitely see that. So
Like
that
I could control my emotions, like too. Like I could, my imagination and my sensitivity to things like music. I don't know. I would just put on like music and I could evoke tears or I could evoke like anything really. I felt like I was like, and I actually enjoyed doing that a lot. Pretty weird.
is kind of weird. Yeah, I guess a lot of, I mean, just children in general have pretty good imaginations, but I think INFPs and INFJs have very vivid imaginations in different ways. Um, Kind of going into
Definitely agree.
how you were as a child, how do you think you evolved kind of um, throughout your life as an INFP?
Evolved. I don't know. I think the best way to answer that would be to say that I learned how to be a bit more critical of others in a more like grounded and reasonable way. So I think my value system used to be so black and white, and I would look at the world and I would look at other people, and maybe, for example, like I remember meeting someone who was a self-proclaimed atheist, and a big part of my value system is believing in God, and I would quite literally, without any real self consciousness, be like, well, you're wrong. This is a serious error. I would have these really intense claims to my values without really understanding how to meet people where they're at. I would kind of jump into the values and I would say, well, we can't, I don't know if we can really relate in the way I really wish we could without this. Whereas now I kind of see how people form their value systems based on kind of where they come from and all sorts of stuff. I feel like I'm able to, you could want to put it in type terms, extrovert, intuit, really understand the patterns involved, and then also actually people's underlying reasons for what they believe. I think I can entertain arguments and I can entertain, you could say, I don't know, just how we understand the world better. A lot of it was very raw feeling like this feels right, this feels wrong, this is what I believe in, this is what should be the case, without really exploring the real world. It was just straight idealism, raw form. Yeah.
Interesting. I think I don't know if I wasn't necessarily like that, but I definitely was holier than thou for sure.
Yeah.
Like
That introverted intuition ego.
yeah,
Watch out.
up until not that long ago, I would say I was probably 20 maybe. Maybe 21. I might have been younger, but I think I was no, I think I was actually 21, maybe even 22. So not that long ago. I was pretty I was pretty like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that because it's wrong. And I mean, I'm not going to like I'm not going to like have sex, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to do drugs, I'm not going to do anything. And I don't do most of those things or like what is considered bad, but at the same time I realized, I mean, I've grown, I've experienced things, and I realized those things aren't, I mean, not all of those things are bad.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's interesting.
If we're going to talk about those types of things, I've always been interested in probing into how the extroverted feeler might hold this very well defined way of seeing the world. You could say their value system is just really well thought out because they see the connections and everything, but they're pulled by their need for social approval. Uh, you could say through extroverted feeling, the extroverted feeling process. So I've always wanted to like talk to Jays about that. I don't know if you can relate to that. It's like you have your sense of you could say your identity, and you think a lot about it because you're an intuitive feeler. But not only do you think about it, like you really know, like you have your reasons because of NI. The introverted intuition is so narrowed in on who you are or whatever. But then the extroverted feeling process, it's like, well, I want people to be comfortable. I want people to like me, whatever. And then the values can sometimes blur because of that. I don't know if you have any experience with that. That's something else.
No, I do. Actually, that's interesting. I've never kind of talked about that, but yeah, I would say that really rings true for me. And so I would say it's kind of changed in a little bit, but I mean, this is embarrassing, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. I don't need to say his name, because yeah. But actually, a lot of the reasons why I didn't do certain things was because I was like, oh well, I was delusional, all that stuff. But I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that stuff because I want to be with this person. Um, so that was actually one of my big things back then. And it's not that way anymore. I mean, he wasn't the only reason, but there was, I would say that was a big reason for me. But I think the biggest reason was I wanted to, I don't know, portray this certain person, like live this certain life and not have um, external forces dictate that. So, like, for example, if we're talking about virginity, like, I didn't want, like, I wanted to be like this person that never did any stuff like that. And, like, um, and that was a big deal. And that's kind of like, that's a interesting topic for me. But yeah, for a while, I was just very against anything. And yeah, so I'm trying to be very vague because it's kind of
Mm.
weird, but yeah.
No, it's fun. Definitely an important topic. I think when you talk about values, um, a big part of how we relate to other people, in that way, I think is reflects on our values. I think also something I was just thinking about too with the INFJ. I've noticed that for you could say an INFP to self-regulate their emotions. So say you're anxious versus INFP. In order to really like work through that in some sense, I feel like INFJs have a greater need, like psychological need, to verbalize their emotions. So whereas an INFP can kind of like goes into themselves, you could say, like they just need time to be inside to process the feelings. Say maybe they need to create something. I don't know. Usually it's something like that. But in my experience with INFJs, even ENFJs, see this with ENFJs a little bit. It's like they don't know how they feel until they start talking, like really talking, and they're letting it go. Um, but I don't know.
No, that's definitely true. I agree with that.
I love listening.
So my stepmom is an ENFJ, and obviously I'm an INFJ. That's exactly like, especially in high school, especially like before college, I talked to my friend Rachel, and a couple other people, but not about really super. It wasn't super like, I wasn't like talking about like, oh, this person, I hate that person or something like that. But I did talk to Rachel about that kind of stuff, or like people that irritated me. And I also talked to my mom and my sister. My mom's an ISFJ. Your mom's also an ISFJ. Uh,
Yeah,
my
ISFJ moms.
Yes, and then my sister's an ISTJ.
Nice.
And basically, my sister get really annoyed with me like talking out my emotions because I didn't tell them to anybody else. I was just kind of like, it kind of like was all spilled on them. And but yeah, I had to do that. I used to talk with my stepmom. I mean, I still do, but we can talk for hours about the same subject and not get bored.
My
Um,
brother's an INFJ, and that's what I see. Although he is a Type One, not a 9 or whatever, but that's what I see with him. It's like he's trying to resolve this introverted intuition with this introverted thinking like process where he's really just super analytical, contemplative dude, and he's in himself. And it's like he needs to ground it. How does he ground it? Well, he grounds it in like teaching other people, taking care of other people. It's that extroverted feeling process, and then maybe even extroverted sensation, like getting a little goofy or being a bit more sensual in his body, aesthetic, in the way that he experiences the world, just more uh, tactile, you could say. And it's like to me, it's an interesting seeing the introverted intuitive, the dominant introverted intuitive, go from like being so deeply like into whatever they're into and like trying to communicate it in a very cogent, clear way using their logic. But then like really they're sensitive too, like really sensitive. So it's this really like beautiful combination of traits, which makes INFJs uncommon, of course, because they're combining these two traits. Pretty cool. I like that.
for
Definitely.
people that may not know, how would you describe your relationship with your INFJ brother?
Well, he's a one INFJ, so that gives you some context. He's very conscientious. Um, so there's definitely a strong sense of him informing my worldview. So he he's very well, that's introverted intuition. It's just so honed in, on what it's honed in on. And I feel like because of that, what he hones in on, I get residue from. So for him, he's very interested in philosophy and theology, um, more generally, those, you could say, disciplines, but really just like metaphysical foundations for religious belief. Very, very esoteric, very NI stuff, like intense. Like, let's get more intense than that, right? Um, so here I am, like taking in that a lot of the time. So I see like a pattern of him returning to the metaphysic. So he's always trying to communicate this, that there are principles to the universe that are objectively true, and that's the type one mystic type thing. It's like there's truth out there. We can't sense it with our senses, but there's truth out there, and it's like we're trying to understand. We're trying to commune with it. We're trying to relate to it, and I feel like I've really, really, that's really influenced my worldview, because I'm someone who's very, very open. Very open. You could say prototypically, I have more of a liberal temperament. So that means, like, if you're very creative, but you're not as conscientious, you tend to be more, you could say, lax and more open to other people's values and religious systems. Whereas he's much more like, there's one way of seeing things, and this is true, and these are the reasons. And not only is it true, there literally are patterns out there that I don't really quite understand. But yeah, pretty abstract, I know. I did my best. He'll probably hate me if he ever sees this, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. He won't see it. He won't see it.
Or really?
No one needs to know.
Um. So okay,
But it's a beautiful relationship. I mean,
people might be confused by this. I don't know if anybody's confused. But when
there are people
thinking about
talking.
1 to 9 or something like that, that's Enneagram. Would you
That's
like
right.
to briefly just go over the numbers, like just to kind of fill people in on what Enneagram is? So they're not.
I think the best way to understand what the Enneagram is it's like basically uh, it comes from that, like, kind of like very psychoanalytic tradition. So it focuses a lot on what is going wrong with you. Like, so you might start thinking about, well, what are your maladaptive coping styles for stress? And that there's a pattern to how you cope with stress. And then if you're coping with stress in a good way, in like a healthy way, well, then you have this, you've got this virtue that kind of comes out. There's a virtue to you. And then there's also a vice to you. And it's the virtue and the vice that is really what the Enneagram is looking at. It's looking at, as an example, Emily and I are both type nines. So for us, our vice would be what's called sloth, or spiritual ignorance, or something like that. So we, like, I guess the reality is that nines, their ego structure wants to be comfortable, to be at peace, to be in harmony. So when something really stressful happens in life, because life is stressful, what do? Well, we kind of avoid it. We kind of push it down. We say it's not that. It's really not something that I have to address. Um, so it's a style of avoidance, and at its worst, it's ignorance of truth, ignorance of, like, how things actually are in our lives and other people's lives. But it's because we're trying to be peaceful and comfortable. And then, like, the virtue end of that is, well, wow, I can manage conflict. Like, I can actually look at conflict, and then I can address it. I actually know how to face conflict in a healthy way. And they call that right action, which is moving towards the three. So you've got, like, basically, as a nine, you go to health versus unhealth. And for the nine, it's the three. So you see these different patterns for each types,
I think
basically.
I might be wrong about this, but it looks like your video's frozen.
I think you're right.
Okay, now it's not. It wasn't.
I just redid it. So so yeah, maybe that helped. I highly recommend you check out the Enneagram. What you'll notice is that there are consistent traits with each type. I mean, it's pretty cool. There are distinct correlations between your trait agreeableness, your trait extroversion, trait openness with each of the Enneagram types. So yeah, pretty neat.
No, I think that's good that you kind of went over it a little bit. Um, Something I don't know if this is too touchy, but I think it would be interesting for people to maybe get a sense. I don't know if you've have you talked about this on your channel about your dad?
About what?
Your dad?
Oh no, not really, to be honest. I've talked about um I've talked about generally speaking like death and spirituality, but I haven't really gone super into it. Um, I've talked a lot about suffering and the importance of basically enduring suffering. Um, being able to essentially bear it and to see it as something that we all have to bear in different ways. And I think that death is ultimately a representation of that. So very, and it's very informed by my Christian beliefs too. So no, I haven't really talked about it distinctly.
Would
So
you be open to kind of talking about it, or are you not really wanting to talk about
I don't mind. I don't mind talking about it. Um, I mean, when I was younger, my father passed away, and an elongated period of time that he was sick. And I think when you're young and you experience sickness, but it's not even just sickness, not even just death. It's anything. It's like any type of suffering. It could be like your parents' divorce. It could be you under traumatized relationship. You name it. Just something that uh, distinctly causes a lot of suffering. You could say. Um, well, then guess what? You've got to cope with it, and we cope with it in these different ways, and that's really what I like to talk about, right? It's like, well, how do you cope with these these realities of life that are just not easy, and it binds people together too. That's what's so beautiful too. Like people heal dramatically when they share pain, particularly if they have the similar pain, right? Like an addict who recovers can really help an addict who's also suffered. So I just see opportunities for healing and suffering, and that's something I'm drawn to.
how do you think the experience of your dad dying changed you as a man?
Uh, Really, just basically understanding that our lives are are in are actually in the way that we relate to our family and one another. So so yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, it's kind of like you can concern yourself with a lot of things. You can worry about the future, or maybe you can feel bad about yourself and feel ashamed of something you did or something like that. But you know, I guess there are things in life that can sober you up, that can make you focus on what actually is meaningful, what is actually important, what you value. And I think that's kind of what death does in general. So for me, it kind of reaffirmed my values, and what I actually want, which is to endure suffering in a meaningful way, I guess you could say.
Um, what do you think like led you into typology or kind of this journey?
Uh, what led me into typology?
Yeah.
Just my genuine interest in seeing the world from other people's perspective. So I've always had this innate proclivity for uh, just sensitivity to others and wanting to see the world from another person's perspective. So take as an example, you're riding on your bike down the street and you see like this beautiful garden or something, and and that's me. I'm on the bike and I see the beautiful garden, and it moves me deeply, and it's inspiring or something like that. And then my friend is next to me on a bike and rides up, and I say, "Do you see how beautiful this garden is?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, I do. It is very beautiful." Well, I guess for me, we're sharing that experience, right, of something beautiful. And for me, I've always been interested in trying to really feel like other people truly see what I see, or vice versa, help people to feel like I see what they see, bridging that gap that is just being individual people through empathy, compassion, and things like that. That's just always been my big interest. I see the MBTI typology. I see all of these things as tools to basically promote that kind of communication.
Do you think because of technology you were able to improve certain relationships? Like, for example, going back to the fact that we have ISFJ mothers, I know we've talked about, like, you've talked about your mom before with me, and how that relationship is. Do
A
you
super orderly lady.
think so? What do you think as far as your relationships and stuff?
What exactly did you ask? I'm sorry. How MBTIs informed them?
Or just like typology in general, how that's kind of maybe improved relationships, how you were
I
able.
think it's kind of done a little bit of good and bad because it's like you kind of see the weak points really clearly. Like you see how you're different, and you can see how difficult it can be to really like relate in the way you might want to, particularly for someone who's a sensor. But it's been quite beautiful because for me, I I don't know. I guess you could say I love the way I see the world, but I understand that central to just my well-being and the well-being of my intimates is appreciation. It's showing people that you care, and there are different ways that people uh, receive love, and obviously love what we love, but it's how we're made vulnerable to the world based on you know, our a priori, like the ways that we kind of assume the world looks and works. And for me, it's kind of a beautiful tool to be able to understand that I can bond over sensation. Like if I wanted to end that world and of the sensation and order and security, and trying to appreciate that in my mother or anyone who holds that preference. It's trying to show them that I appreciate who they are. So
How did you do that with like, because again, anybody that's tuning in, I've known Joey for years. Like, we grew up in the same city. We were both Catholic. We went to the same church, stuff like that. And so we kind of were like in contact, even like when you went off to college, I went off to college, and I mean, I know you dated a little bit. How would you say that kind of um, influenced, or maybe some things that you got about maybe the women that you've dated?
I think I've become exceptionally more realistic and
Mhm.
less idealistic. Not that I have lost my idealism. It's just I understand that that I understand. I think what feels like what really feels right, and that sounds so like ambiguous and stuff. But like I really believe that there's an intuitive kind of like gut response to like to communication and whether or not you feel like you're building rapport with people and feel like you're connected with people and things like that. And I've experienced bad relationships and I know what a bad relationship is. But I've also experienced so many wonderful relationships. So it's like being able to take like an emotional inventory of what that feels like, really, and being able to use that to navigate future relationships gives me a really, really strong sense of confidence and emotional security because, well, it's I feel like if you're able to get your relationship kind of health right or something like that, um, which I feel like I'm confident I can do that based on my past experiences, learning and experiencing things. I feel like everything else follows. Like it's like the top of the pyramid for well-being, in my opinion.
Hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, something like that, like a hierarchy. It's like if you want a healthy, and they've shown this too. Like if like your social connectedness is the largest contributing factor to your longevity. So you find that people who are more socially interconnected, particularly married men, live substantially longer than unmarried men. I mean, it's like 7 to 8 years. It's pretty phenomenal. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, being connected and is big.
I think I agree with that. I think connections are huge. I don't know. Did you see like how I don't know if you're coming or not this weekend. I don't know if you saw that. But like I'm having a thing this weekend in Atlanta with some of my friends. We're going to Pont City Market, which is fun. Have you ever
Yeah,
been?
have you? I have a few, just a couple times.
Yeah.
I do not recommend the cookie dough thing.
You what?
Cookie dough, there's like this place you can just like eat cookie dough. It's nuts. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
What? Wait, what did you say?
There's a place that like they feed you cookie dough, like straight cookie dough.
Oh wait! Oh my gosh! That's a place that my friend Danielle told me about, like when I was in Seattle, that was opening, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go there. No, I'm
Yeah.
going there.
Well, yeah, you think it's great until like you realize you just ate a bunch of cookie dough.
That sounds like the perfect day. Like I'm gonna totally go.
There's something to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I recommend it. It's cool. Have
Okay.
fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Wow. Okay. Anybody that's coming this weekend, you definitely have to go to that place. I forgot about that place. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I invited you. I don't know if you want to come or not. But anyways, I um as far as connections go, I that's something that I kind of struggled with when it came to living in Seattle. I know we were talking sometimes when I was living in Seattle, and I made quite a few friends, especially since I was only there less than a year. But there was only a handful of people, which I guess I shouldn't expect to like have a million friends, but handful of like really close friends that I'm still like really in contact with now. And I didn't have any family there, and I just kind of was by myself, and that was really difficult. Um, so connections, building connections, being with people that you love, at least for me, sounds like for you, is a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's just the truth of who we are. We we are just we're made of one another in a really fundamental sense. Like our brains and our bodies, like they sync up. Like our whole biology is very much like we come out of attachment through our mothers. Like that's like really sets us up for everything. Like if you've got a mother that's super sad and ignores you when you're an infant, I mean, that's it's like a part of you isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the people who really suffer with mental attachment issues. Like it's not their fault; it's because of their mother for not really being there, for being really stressed out or something. But anyway, the point is we're connected. We're connected.
going off on a deep topic. Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. I mean, people need to treat people like, I mean, like we literally, like we process emotional pain like it's physical pain. So it's important to understand that.
Yeah. So, just kind of off the topic of typology, I know that you're going to be starting school again. I mean, you've been in
Yep.
school, but you're gonna go off and do that. Are you excited? Would you like to tell people about what you're doing and stuff?
I'll
Or
probably make a more formal video on it within the next like 2 weeks or something. But
okay,
yeah, I'll be going to nursing school. Um, and hopefully I'll be able to put my super agreeableness to good use. So hopefully I can take care of people as a nurse, and then hopefully what I would like to do is pursue a provider role as a nurse practitioner for osteopathic medicine. Essentially, I want to be a modern day healer in whatever capacity I can be. I'm excited to do it, so it'll be cool to see how that goes.
so that is
Yeah.
exciting. Um, I guess going back to typology, um, what would you like? What advice would you give to people, specifically INFPs? What advice would you give to them, knowing what you know now,
For typology,
or
okay.
just in general? It doesn't even people not even super into typology. Just
I guess the point. I think the point of seeing the point of seeing patterns in life intuitively, which is what I would say like temperament is. It's like you see the patterns that maybe you get used to. I think a big part of what makes life so beautiful is being able to kind of like grow and appreciate the different patterns, you know? And I think I think that when we become interested in typology, we tend to get caught up in trying to really understand the idiosyncrasies, the little like details of each type. But I think what we should do is we should try to basically only think about it a little bit and then focus on really truly experiencing those patterns. Because I think that's what we're after in life. We're not really after trying to understand everything rationally and form theoretical models and all that. We want to like live our lives and be engaged and stuff like that. So yeah, don't limit yourself with the theoretical part. Um, I guess just follow that whatever you find engaging within it, you know, and just be engaged with it.
um,
That's my advice.
besides INFPs, and I know you've talked about like how you are kind of into extroverted feeling as well, like you
Oh
kind of
yeah,
you're interested in. Um,
definitely.
what drew you to extroverted feeling? Like, why were you interested in extroverted?
Maybe it was just the feelings. I don't know. That's probably the best way to put it. I guess my one of my biggest motivations in life is simply to create intimacy. I I just love feeling felt and helping other people feel good and just all about the feelings. And with extroverted feelings, that's also the primary motivation for those people. So for me, it's a way to relate, you know, it's a way to relate. And then on top of it, not only is it a way to relate, it's a way to relate that is drastically different. So it's like it's interesting. So I found it like stimulating, you could say. I've talked about in my videos in the past psychic energy. So like it's like a flow. So it's like you've got like the conscious energy flowing into the unconscious, and it's like this with these opposite functions. I think what I was experiencing was this like almost like a dance. Like it's just you're dancing. You're dancing with each other. Um, you can't ever really totally wrap your head around it, which is also cool. there's an element of mystery to it. I think that's also something.
What types would you say you maybe have had? It's been kind of a journey to try to maybe have a more positive relationship with, or kind of it, maybe that wasn't expressed well. You get what I'm saying? Like, which types have you kind of had maybe issues with in the past, if any?
Issues. I run into issues, I think, with people who are highly. I just have problem. I have issues with people who aren't very creative, like just the SJs in general. Like it's hard for me to totally meet them where they're at. It's like I'm interested in ideas and I'm interested in creative stuff. And so if you don't, I feel like the communication, like there's a communication barrier for engagement in conversation. It's like you get kind of bored. So I've had issues with that where I'm like really passionate about stuff because I am, and 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 it's like they're trying to keep up with me or they're trying to because they care about me. They're my friends or whatever, but they're clearly not as interested in the world in an abstract way. So it's like you kind of feel like maybe you're being a bit of a burden sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Or you're exhausting. Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, a lot of my friends I don't really talk about certain topics with. I don't know if you watched my interview with Wences, but Wences kind of said it perfectly. I agree with her in this. She was talking about how she has um, different people that she gets different things from, and I agree with that. At least for me, I don't. I don't get maybe I may get have psychological conversations with one person, and then maybe I have a shared music taste or shared food taste with another person. And obviously, it's more deep. It's deeper than that with people. It's not like just those really, I guess, specific things. But
You
yeah,
have to share. You have to share stuff. Like you got to have similarity to produce liking. Like that's a psychological phenomenon. It's like if you want to trust another person and be friends with another person, well, what you got to do is you got to show them that you're interested in them and that you like the things that they like. But the thing is, you don't want to work hard to do that. You want it to come naturally, right? So, you know, you want to build similarity up in life. That's what good friendship is, I think. Like, but the thing is, with two intuitive healers, they have the same interest. They just do. They're interested in people. They're interested in how people feel about them, their values, and they're idealistic too. So it's like there's so much fuel there to like share. So
um,
great.
something also about that we kind of share a commonality that we share. We were both RAs in
We
college.
were we were RAs.
Oh, I love the hat.
Oh yeah, thanks,
Um,
Boston.
what what
I
would
was the cool RA.
you're the
I didn't get anyone in trouble.
you didn't get anybody in trouble?
Not that many.
Oh,
Very few.
well,
Very few.
I was the so I was like the goody two shoes RA that like did everything exactly the way it was supposed to be. I also like I could sniff out marijuana from like a mile away. So,
Yeah. Sure, I'm sure.
but no, but actually my residence, I didn't do it in a like I didn't like I got some people in trouble, but I didn't like that wasn't my goal. Um, and I'm actually friends with some of my residents even today,
Great.
my former residents. Uh,
It was, yeah, I really enjoyed the role.
how do you think it kind of
Fit
uh,
me very well.
benefited you?
it gave me the opportunity to dive into each person's life in a very intimate way. From It's like not only am I an authority figure here, um, I'm an authority figure that cares. So I like to step into that role of letting people know that if they do need someone, I'm there. And not only am I there, I actually want to be there. It wasn't like a job necessarily for me. It was more of a way to integrate people into a community, and for people who like who are dealing with stuff to realize that they don't have to deal with it alone, which is probably a big part of what I like. Just the community aspect.
Yeah.
It was really wonderful.
I mean, going back to what you said about that, yeah, that's something I really liked. I really liked planning events as an RA, and I loved just like bringing people together and connecting with people. And I don't really remember from our conversations back then, but for me, I had some kind of serious things happen. Like, I had to deal with some serious conflict situations, like from residents, and they weren't necessarily my residents, but like on my campus, we had, rape, we had people that, abuse, both
Right.
physical, verbally abusive. Did you guys have any of that kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, there were numerous incidents, but what I was primarily dealing with was just alcohol. Um, People would drink too much, and then I would have to basically make sure someone was okay. That was what I dealt with most of the time. Enforcing just people who are getting out of control. I just go in there and diffuse it basically. Um, but yeah, I had some pretty serious things happen on campus. I didn't deal with um, all of them directly. Obviously, there was the whole campus and stuff, but there was it was a small community, so when things happened, people figured out about it.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of did care about one another to a certain degree, and you know, a lot of the conflicts I dealt with was just um, related to young people binge drinking, and they're binge drinking and they drink too much, and you kind of have to check in on them. I did have people who were mixing some drugs too, and I had a kid go into seize very badly, so I had to kind of take care of him while the paramedics or whatever came. So I had instances like that. Um, just a lot of late nights with drunk idiots. You know,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the gist of it.
No, I definitely dealt with that as well. One of I don't think he's watching, but of course I'm not gonna say his name. But one time, and I'm not gonna get into specifics, but a fellow RA, we were coming back from something. I was not drinking. I was a designated driver. He was he wasn't on duty or anything like that. He was just coming back on campus, but he was plastered. Um, like the point, and he was a big guy,
But
but
yeah,
he could not control himself. Like he was falling over, so he had to
yeah,
stay at like my dorm because he would, if he went through the dorms that he was an RA for, he would have probably been fired because it was pretty crazy. Like he
yeah.
like we had to hold him up. Um, but yeah, it is kind of it's interesting because it's almost like, did you not, what elementary school did you go to? Or is that too
Huddleston.
Huddleston? Yeah, I went to Crabapple um
Wow.
in Kedron. Anyways, did you have mini society? Like I know that's really
I
random.
don't think so. We did like a mock like economic thing where we like trade stuff.
That was mini society.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was called that at your
I did
school.
that once.
Yeah. What did you do?
I don't remember how it worked exactly. I want to say we like had coins we were given, like fake currency and backies, and we had to trade stuff.
Did you like what? Oh, you don't remember what you made for it?
No. Sorry.
I made Play-Doh.
Nice.
Anyways, the reason why I said
That was so random.
that, yeah, it
Heck
was
yeah.
really random.
Play-Doh. Yes. I
Well,
love Play-Doh.
no, seriously.
I do love Play-Doh.
I was like, when I was okay, so okay, my mom is wanting to go to sleep, so um, so I'm gonna have to end the call in just
No
a minute.
problem.
But the reason why I brought up mini society is the fact that kind of being an RA kind of reminded me, or just being in college. It's like the thing I liked about college a lot was I personally met and dealt with some pretty serious things in college. But because it was kind of in this confined space, it was a lot, there was a lot less consequences, or the consequences were a lot
It was
more
contained.
watered down than,
Yeah. It was contained.
yeah, it was contained. And also there were like obviously campus police and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Quickly before we go, let's see if there's
Yeah.
questions or something on the chat.
Yeah, let's see. Hey, whoever is on chat, do you have any questions for either of us? Give them any questions. The F's are so mysterious to me. Oh, they're mysterious to me too. And I am one.
Now, a lot of people are just like saying stuff.
Yeah, having a convo.
Yeah, I do need to go soon. It's like it's 11:23 here.
LOL.
Okay, okay, my mom's coming in. Gotta go. Oh, oh wait, never mind. It was just Henry.
Oh, Henry, hello. Have I met Henry?
No, Henry's
Oh my god, what a wonderful. What kind of. What breed is that?
a Chihuahua poodle.
Wow.
But yeah, so I have to go.
He's so small.
What?
He's so small. Okay, take care.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Hey, thanks for having me. And thanks for watching if you're with us, anyone out there.
Yeah.
Like the video.
And subscribe to Joey.
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice. We'll see you guys soon, I'm sure.
All right. Bye.
All right. Take care.